All right, it's the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle Reese. I am the Student Success Program Coordinator here at UAGC, and I'm going to be your host today. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcriptions. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now I'm pleased to introduce Cara Metz and Sarah Jarvie in the presentation with Burnout is a System, Not a System, Addressing Mental Health in Learning Organizations. Okay, take it away.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I am Cara Metz, and with my partner in crime, Dr. Sarah Jarvie. And like it
Hello.
was said, we are presenting Burnout is a System, Not a Symptom, Addressing Mental Health in Learning Organizations. Um, I am here at UAGC. I'm a department head and professor in the behavioral professions. Sarah.
And I'm Dr. Sarah Jarvie. I'm not at UAGC, but I am an associate professor at Colorado Christian University. And Dr. Metz and I went to school together a long time ago for our doctorates and reconnected and have been presenting together for probably like 9 years, I think,
Mm.
maybe longer. And so this is yeah, one of the times that we like to collaborate and connect. So excited to be here with you all today.
And a little bit of a background. We are both licensed professional counselors. That's what our background and our master's and our doctorate are in. And so we feel very passionate every time a presentation comes up to tie it in with mental health and burnout and just how to be successful.
Mhm.
So today our learning objectives are to identify systemic contributors to burnout through the lens of Bronfenbrenner's systems, understand ways to address burnout in systems, and explore the role of mental health in reducing burnout across learning environments.
So first, we want to just kind of define. We might already know what burnout is, but we just wanted to kind of set the stage for the rest of the presentation. So for this presentation, we're talking about burnout through the lens of systems and organizational units. And so we're thinking about burnout as not just an individual issue, but rather defining it as an occupational phenomenon. And I think, especially since COVID, the term burnout has really increased in talking about it in all areas in different professional aspects. And the World Health Organization, in 2019, funnily enough, pre-COVID, defined burnout characterized by three key dimensions: emotional exhaustion, feeling drained, depleted of emotional and physical energy. So just kind of that really just tiredness. Depersonalization or cynicism. So kind of being detached from what you're doing, or a negative attitude from work or interacting with students or even colleagues. And then also the idea of a reduced personal accomplishment. So just really not feeling much of a purpose or not feeling like you're being effective. And so this is kind of the lens that we're approaching burnout for this presentation, of kind of through the lens of just feeling drained in terms of work and kind of, not wanting to really maybe put forth your full efforts because you're just feeling over it. Building on that, just some more common signs and symptoms of burnouts that research has shown. So just persistent fatigue, low motivation, kind of waking up not wanting to do much, irritability, frustration, detachment, decreased productivity or concentration, sleep disturbances happens a lot, and physical complaints. Or kind of like somatic things happening in your body, like whether that's headaches or muscle aches or tension, or just feeling a little bit more kind of lethargic. Feeling unappreciative or ineffective. So maybe like I'm doing all this work and it doesn't feel like it's counting for anything, or I'm not getting any recognition. All these can kind of are signs of burnout, but also kind of fuel burnout. So I think once we get to this state of feeling burned out, I kind of explain it sometimes, like when I saw clients or students, like it's kind of this slope and we're kind of in this like pit. So we're in this like bottom here. And so it's hard to get out of that. Loss of passion for previously your work or home life, and kind of just overall job dissatisfaction.
And when you think about burnout, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a system. So we will be talking a little bit about Bronfenbrenner systems and looking at all of the things that impact us on a daily basis. We exist and we interact with others. We interact with communities, we interact with our environments, and all of that contributes to our burnout, which is why this presentation is so important, because we can't resolve burnout on our own. We have to take a bigger look. And in learning organizations, we're going to talk about how we can use these reflective practices to create the environments so that people can overcome that burnout with the help of the organization. It isn't okay to just put that onus on the individual. We have to look at it from the bigger picture. And so prevention cannot be just up to the individual. It has to be up to the system.
Excuse me. So we're looking at this through the lens of Bronfenbrenner's ecological model. So where Cara and I both did our graduate training and our master's and doctoral level, we learned how to approach our clients through this ecological model, where we look at, if you look at this diagram, you see the individual at kind of the center, and then the systems that affect the individual. And it's through this lens of, so we have someone, or you think of yourself, and you think about all of the systems around you that influence your day-to-day life, your interactions. And so we look at, through this lens, we can view burnout as not just an individual failure, but the result of multiple kind of systemic issues through the different ecological levels. So the first level outside of yourself and the individual is what we call the microsystem. And these are the direct settings and the relationships that an individual interacts with daily. Some of the research, if you're familiar with this, talks more about like students or like a child, if you have seen this before, but we're going to think about this for ourselves, for us individually. So what on the microsystem level is going to contribute to our burnout, right? So this might look like workplace demands. We're being asked to do more excessive workload, to taking on more classes, taking on more responsibilities, unclear expectations or unrealistic performance standards. So workplace demands. This could look like an like stressors in our life, either with colleagues or even home stressors. Things are happening in our life at home with either family members or caregiving. I have 2 little kids, so sometimes that can cause more stress in my life, figuring out, what are my kids doing? Like today, who's getting my daughter off the bus from kindergarten while I'm giving this presentation, or just kind of work-life balance, or even lack of support. Sometimes we're brought into roles or asked to take on jobs and we're not really given any any direction or any help. We're kind of just like, okay, here you go, and you're thrown into it. All of these kind of microsystem things that affect us on a daily, kind of individual things, um, can increase our propensity to burnout. Then the next system is thinking about the mesosystem, and this is kind of connections between two or more microsystems, such as home, work, or school, community. And so with these, we're kind of a little bit deeper in the levels of systems. So this is like work-family conflict. So this is when it's hard for us to have that work-life balance. Work is demanding more, or maybe home is demanding more. And we're just feeling more stressed out about how do we balance this. Another system in this level is poor communication between systems. So when there are expectations kind of from maybe a higher level system put on us, and things, I mean, I've been in higher ed long enough to know that sometimes systems do this, right, in their communication, where it's missed and it's not an equal level of communication. And that kind of goes into the next point about inconsistent expectations, where we're asked to do something, and maybe it goes against our values, or home life is great, but our supervisor is not great, or work is going well, but our home life is not going well, and there's lots of stress there that then is impacting your ability to fully do your work. Then the next level is the exosystem. And so these are systems that directly influence the individual, but that individual doesn't necessarily participate in them. So institutional policies that happen, organizational culture, like leadership turnover, new things happen at the university wide that might not necessarily that influence us, but we don't have we don't report to say, like, I don't report to the president of my university. But so, if leadership turns over, or I would even say, like, this is farther down, but budget cuts or eliminating jobs. I live in Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. And so we've had a lot of, we're in a budget crisis right now. And a lot of people that I know are, have been laid off in the sense of, like, they're furloughed and not working, or they're expected to come to work but not getting paid. Like, all that can be a huge influence of burnouts. Or even just in the community, like, what are the systems in the community and that are not supportive of the individual, or you live in a more rural area, and so you don't have a lot of access to things. So these are kind of all things within the exosystem, sorry, I can't talk today, that influence burnout. And then the broader macro system is more cultural values, societal norms, political systems, and kind of, when we think about cultural expectations, the idea of kind of overworking, or, stigma. I put down here stigma around self-care. I think we're getting better about prioritizing self-care. And mental health, and taking care of ourselves, and knowing when to say no, or I can't take on any more projects. But all of that, if you're in that culture of expectation of wanting you to do more and do more, it can be hard to go against that culture. Also, systemic inequities, either these can be broad, or they can be more individual, discrimination or bias based on race, gender, or socioeconomic status. These can all be bigger things that are broader than us, but that have an influence on our burnouts. And then societal priorities, I had to put in here underfunding of helping professions and limited focus on mental health, because it feels like mental health is always getting cut. And we're always trying to advocate for more funding, or insurance companies aren't wanting to pay out their therapists, or they want to cut rates or things. And then policy or environment around that. I mean, I think you can also add in politics. I mean, that's, we just had election day yesterday, and, I think there's always, I'm not going to go into that because I feel like that's a can of worms, but I think just being aware of how political environments or current political state really, right now I feel like it's a really, like we're shaking. They're shaking the bear of the political system, and it's upsetting a lot of people, and that can cause a lot of stress that influences you personally, but might not be in your little sphere of control, but yet it's your big system, macro system, that is influencing you as the little individual.
Now, even those things that are outside of your work can still influence you at work. We cannot keep our lives siloed. We kind of bring ourselves and our stress and our burnout everywhere we go. So, from our discussion of burnout from a systems perspective, you can clearly see that burnout is not just an individual problem, but it is impacted by the systems we exist in. It can also be a signal that something bigger is happening. It can indicate that there is a breakdown in the system or at your workplace in an organization. So using the learning organization ideas when there is lots of burnout happening with your people, with your employees, the organization really needs to take a moment to pause, reflect, learn, and then adapt. So breakdowns are not failures. They should be used as feedback. They can clue us in on where stress points exist, where communication might be strained, and where systems no longer line up with what the people of the organization need. So we might be operating in one direction, and that seems all fine and dandy, but eventually that might not work out. And so we need to pay attention to that. Just because it worked 5 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work today, because we all adapt and change. The environments around us change, and so our needs change. Our needs change from what we need in an organization. So this brings us to the question of how can an organization learn from burnout? So this should lead us to the point of curiosity and openness. So instead of asking an individual, why are you burnt out? Like, what's going on in your life? You need to handle that. Asking why we as an organization are burnt out. Uh, what does this burnout reveal about how we're working? Do the people of an organization feel supported? Do we see how much we value them? Have we set up manageable workloads? Are the expectations that we have clear? So you can see all of these questions that we need to ask are lining up very nicely with the systems that Bronfenbrenner laid out. So through asking these questions, we can use the collective feeling of burnout as a jumping off point for well-being. So instead of blaming, asking an individual why they're burnt out, we need to work on growth and designing a better workplace. So this focuses on growth instead of deficit. And this is how we develop resilience, both in individuals as well as in organizations. So now when people feel like their well-being is being taken care of and their self-development self-development needs are being acknowledged and addressed by an organization, that's when they can start to participate in that organization. So if you set up a learning organization, people can't start learning until their well-being feels like it's being prioritized by the organization and their own self-development needs are being addressed by the organization. Only then can we participate in that learning organization. So this is why we can't ignore mental health and burnout or see it as an individual problem that needs to be addressed by that person. When employees trust that their workplace values them as a whole person and not just a producer or a workhorse, they're more likely to share insights, take initiative, and contribute to improvement. In addition, research has found that three factors are consistently driving organizational learning, and that's when there's social support, decision latitude, and rewards. So when people have strong relationships with their coworkers, with their leadership, they feel like they have autonomy to make decisions that are best for their work. And they feel like their contributions are being recognized, then learning starts to become a natural part of the culture. So rather than seeing burnout as an end point, we can see it as an entry point or a moment to realign our systems with our values. By fostering social support and giving people voice and agency and celebrating growth, organizations can transform stress into strength and burnout into opportunity. Ultimately, burnout isn't a sign of struggle, it's an invitation to learn, adapt, and build a healthier, more human organization. So, when we think about how to prevent burnout, just like we can't think about burnout as an individual problem, we can't think about burnout prevention as an individual program or an individual problem. So we usually go to individual strategies when we're thinking about burnout, like, oh, what's your self-care like? Um, are you being mindful? Are you taking time for yourself? How's your time management? How can you manage your time better? Are you sleeping well? Do you feel like you have good work-life balance? These are all really great things to help prevent burnout. But if burnout isn't just an individual problem, just doing these things isn't going to resolve the burnout. It might move us in the right direction, but it's not going to get us to that point of prevention or overcoming. So as we presented, burnout doesn't happen in isolation. It grows and it's prevented within the culture of a learning organization. One of the most powerful things that an organization can do to help prevent burnout is to have organizational respect. So, organizational respect isn't just about being polite to people, being kind. It goes beyond the civility of respect. It's about how an organization structures trust, fairness, and voice into its culture and into its policies. It builds systems, policies, and expectations that promote this trust, safety, as well as a propensity for growth, wanting your people to grow. So part of this starts with creating a culture and policy that encourages sharing skill acquisition. We can't um, we can't grow if we don't gain new skills. And maybe we have these great skills. We need to be encouraged to share. Having conferences like TLC is a great moment of sharing. But there's other ways that you can share this information, both formally and informally. But it's very important that there is encouragement to share and take risks to gain new skills. When people are supported in learning new things and are not afraid of what it means to fail, they feel valued and will begin to engage more. Creating this safety can be a big shift and take time. Once people begin to see that it's not just words, people can say all these things like, oh, I want this to happen. I want that to happen. These are great things to say, but especially if people have worked in organizations where that hasn't been the culture or there are policies that possibly don't support that, it's really hard for them to engage in that process and to trust in that process. Um, so it has to go beyond just words. There has to be an opportunity to try new things. And time needs to be provided to allow mindsets to start to shift and change. So one thing that's huge is safety. People have to feel safe. It can be shown through job security. So we know no job is ever 100% secure, but having some sort of consistency with a job, having clear expectations of what needs to be done or how to do things, um, and having contracts can help people feel more stable and can help reduce that anxiety. When anxiety lifts, mental health is feeling better, change can begin to happen. But when people don't feel safe, mental health can really take a toll. So shifting to more stability can create an environment where people feel like they can grow and they can experiment instead of just surviving day to day. Organizations can also create safety and stability through encouraging people to question expectations and business as usual and to collaborate on how to problem solve and to do things better. Innovation thrives when people feel freedom and safety to speak up. When they feel trusted, they will trust. Leadership also plays a role in organizational well-being. A key here is active listening. Uh, Active listening is huge, like coming from a counselor. So it's not just, being that person who maybe is a sounding board, but it's showing empathy, being encouraging to those that you work with, rewarding effort, not just exceptional results. This helps to build that psychological safety, which is important to preventing burnout and keeping mentally well. When people can share their mistakes or growth areas without fear of being judged or even punished, they can lean into learning risks that might not always give perfect results at first. There has to be stumbling blocks sometimes, and sometimes we learn more from our mistakes, and so we have to feel free to be able to make some of those mistakes. Another way that leaders can encourage this prevention of burnout is to make sure that people are matched to their strengths. Not everyone is good at everything. If we try to make all people do all the same things, we can have really inconsistent results. However, if we find strengths in people and then assign the tasks based on their strengths, so maybe their job title is the same, but one person is really good at one thing, another person is really good at another thing, assigning those tasks to align with their strengths, people will feel better about their work. They're going to find passion in what they do, and the results will be happier and stronger employees. Finally, another big piece about learning organizations and preventing burnout is the type of leadership. So one type of leadership that has been well aligned to all of this has been transformational leadership. So this style of leadership goes beyond managing tasks. It's about inspiring, empowering, and connecting people to a shared vision. They help to create meaning and motivation in the workplace, and they help employees see their individual contributions and how they matter to the organization's bigger purpose. So when people understand why their work matters, the sense of purpose counteracts exhaustion and disengagement. Leaders who practice empathy, listen to personal challenges, and align tasks with employees' strengths demonstrate genuine respect and care for those that they work with. This feeling of genuineness is huge, right? So if you have leadership that doesn't feel genuine in what they're saying, the policies that they're putting forth, again, that doesn't feel safe and that pulls back trust. So that genuineness and respect and care helps to build trust, job satisfaction, and enhances the well-being across the organization. So when organizations commit to preventing burnout and building a culture of respect, the results can be really powerful. Faculty and employees will begin to want to exceed expectations, not just meet them. When people feel safe, supported, and trusted, they are motivated by purpose rather than pressure. Their energy shifts from survival to contribution. Oops. We also see increased job satisfaction. When learning, growth, and well-being are part of our daily experience and not just feel like an afterthought or, oh, yeah, maybe I should, say congratulations and then move on to other things. When it's ingrained in what we do, people enjoy their work more. They see how their role connects to the bigger picture and they feel proud about the work that they're doing and the differences that they're making. They feel like they are a part of the process, a part of the growth, and that they matter. They also can experience a decrease in personalization and emotional exhaustion. So when employees feel valued as people and not just workers or what they can do for the organization, they feel more connected to their work and they're less likely to detach emotionally. They find passion. They experience less fatigue because they are not constantly fighting against the system. Instead, they feel like they're thriving in the system. Another outcome is improved mental health. So, safety, empathy, and respect, when that is shown in a consistent basis, when that is shown across an organization, everywhere from your coworker to people in leadership, people begin to have psychological space to rest, reflect, and grow. The workplace becomes a place of renewal instead of one where people feel like they come away from their day feeling depleted and exhausted. And then finally, burnout prevention leads to a greater organizational commitment. When people feel like that their leaders trust them and care about them, when they feel like their voice matters, when they speak up, people listen. They don't just turn them off or make a note, move on, and nothing ever happens. When they have opportunities to learn and develop, people want to be a part of that organization. They want to stick around. They want to see how it's going to turn out. They feel loyalty. People want to stay and invest in a place that invests in them. So, in short, when a learning organization takes burnout seriously, everybody benefits. It really excels the opportunity to become a learning organization, to have people take researched risks, educated risks to try new things out. They feel like they can be um, part of growth. Preventing burnout doesn't just reduce stress, but it creates a culture where people feel like they can flourish, they can be innovative, and they can bring who they are and bring the best version of who they are to work every day. And here are some of the references and the research that is on both burnout, learning organizations, as well as wellness.
Jackie, did you get your question answered about how do you know when it's burnout versus just a bad day? I just want to.
Yeah, I think I did. Dana was very helpful in all that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if you saw the chat, but a question was asked about kind of, how do you know when you're burned out versus just a stressful day? And it's kind of about I think when we're burned out, we wake up and we don't want to go to work. Things seem harder. It's kind of, I think sometimes we can be kind of depressed also when we're burned out. We didn't address that today in today's presentation, but a lot of times there is an aspect of low mood and depression related to burnouts. And a stressful day is, it's just like, when you think, your to-do list is just growing and growing. And it's like, if I have to grade one more thing today, I'm just over it. Or but you're able to kind of see an end and maybe have a break, or maybe put it down and, step away from it. Burnout can sometimes be all consuming. And then I think I saw another comment about you that you were, have a background as a first responder in a previous career. And yeah, that's a real high burnout rate just because of the intensity of the job, and also kind of the things you're exposed to and witness. That can take a real emotional toll, when you're seeing things time and time again. And so yeah, there are some jobs that have kind of higher burnout rates than others. First responder is one of those. And then I think there's another question that I missed.
Well, I would just add, I completely agree. In a former career, well, when I started out counseling, I had hit a burnout period. I had too much on my plate doing a doctoral program, seeing 30 clients a week. I had some health issues, I think it was also planning a wedding. So I had a lot on my plate at that time. And there was a lot of organizational change and just things happening that just didn't feel good. And I think I had a counseling supervisor who told me my feelings don't matter. So, right? So that was the environment that I was coming into at work. And I just remember, I could feel it from my head to my toes. Every morning, I had no motivation to even get out of bed, not even on the days that I didn't have to work. It was just a fight every day, um, to keep moving. And you can feel it in your mental health. I was constantly exhausted. I was probably a little cranky. Um, and so it really seeped into every piece of my day. And it wasn't just a 1 or 2 day thing. It was extensive, and it lasted quite some time until I figured out things that I needed to do to help with that balance. So I think that persistence is really a key factor.
And the other question Charles put in the chat was, how do organizations respond to these burnout prevention strategies? Job security / faculty contracts, faculty support resources are typically budget items that are low on the priority list. So I think this is a hard part because it's a systems, right, approach. And if things aren't valued it's kind of like a top-down approach, right? If things aren't valued from leadership and from people at the top, the people at the bottom of the totem pole are going to be affected the most, right? Because typically they're doing a lot of the work. And so I think that's why it's important to be talking about this at things like this and bringing it to awareness and trying, to think about like, okay, well, how can we make changes? And sometimes the changes might have to be little changes to then support some bigger changes.
I also think it's important for an organization to understand, although if we're thinking about budgets, these might seem like they're lower on the list of things that we need to do, but having employees who are burnt out, they take more sick days, their quality of work decreases, they take longer to get things done, turnover increases, and it's very expensive to hire new people, as opposed to keeping people happy and helping to prevent their burnout. And so some of this might be the need for an organization to really realign their values and look at the bigger picture instead of the just right now picture.
Any other questions or comments or feedback?
Or your own stories about maybe burnout or what you have felt in your own workplace that has really helped you to maybe move past burnout into prevention.
Well, we hope this gave you some information or just being aware about burnout more. And, if you are a leader or have people working under you, being able to check in with them. How are you doing? At my university, we have an assistant dean who oversees faculty. Like just faculty is her job. And so that has helped at our organization feel more supported in my role of like, oh, if I've had some health issues over the past year with an autoimmune disorder where I've had to kind of cut back on some of my things that I normally would say yes to. And so that being able to go to her and feel supported in that when I kind of hit a bottom with my bottomed out, felt like I bottomed out with my health has been really good for me. And so, maybe just looking at your own workload and being aware of, I've also been doing a presentation lately about the power to say no and how realizing that sometimes, we're asked to do like one more thing and it's okay to say no. And I think we're not encouraged to do that enough. And the world's not going to end if you say no and don't take on another project. When you already are feeling, like I can't do one more thing. I can't teach another class. I can't, take another advisee or, just whatever that means for you and your workload. I'm giving you the permission today that maybe your takeaway from this is to be able to say no or just recognize your own boundaries. So thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that's, you got a little nuggets of wisdom and takeaway from our presentation.
Yep.
All right. I want to go ahead and close us out. I want to thank Cara and Sarah for their presentation, and thank you all for participating in today's session. Please use the survey link in the chat to nominate the TLC presentation for conference awards and share your feedback on this wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.